to get started, we're going to start with the Excel component. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about the feature. I'm going to show you where it is on the user interface, and then we're going to go through an example of how to create it, how to use it. So the Excel component essentially lets us embed an Excel spreadsheet inside the Mathcad document. So we're not necessarily linking to an Excel file, we're embedding the Excel object, the Excel spreadsheet, inside the Mathcad document. So on the Math tab here, if we go to the right, the Math tab on the far left is always our anchor. If we go right to the right of that, we see the Input-Output tab. So there we have, in just left of center, we have a Read Excel button and we have the Excel component button. So we're going to be using the Excel component button. So let's go ahead and click on that, and it's going to insert this Excel component inside our Mathcad worksheet. So now here, this is much more powerful than reading in Excel data, just reading in data from a file, because this will let us interact with the Excel spreadsheet. So we can send inputs to the spreadsheet from the Mathcad document. We can read data out of the spreadsheet back into the Mathcad document, and we can activate the spreadsheet and do anything that we want to do in Excel. So the section at the top is for inputs. So those are inputs from Mathcad to Excel. The section at the bottom is for outputs, and those are outputs from Excel to Mathcad. So what we'll do is do some calculations and drop them into this spreadsheet and then do something with Excel. Okay, so I've shown you where the object is located. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do some calculations. So I am actually going to just remove this for a moment and let's do some calculations. So we're going to create a table. We're going to do a very, very simple calculation. 2 columns, okay, and we're going to give our left column a title. So we'll call that one force. We're going to give our right column a title. We'll call that one distance. And we're going to assign the units. So for the force column vector, we're going to use units of newtons, and for distance, we'll use meters. Okay, and so then we're just going to put some numbers into these placeholders. So let's just go through and fill in these numbers here. And so what we're going to do is calculate torque. Okay, so we're going to do a calculation. We're going to calculate torque, and then we're going to drop our data into an Excel component so that we can format it, because in Excel we have the rich text formatting available on tables of data, and we can also apply conditional format. So let's do our calculation for torque. So we're going to just type force times distance, and we're going to apply the vectorize operator, so we get an element by element calculation, and we're going to assign that to a variable called torque. And we can look at our torque values if we would like to. Okay, so there they are. And so now let's go ahead and drop this into an Excel object. And the benefit of doing this is that in Excel, we have the full functionality of Excel available on this data in a tabular format, so that we can really display it in a way that we want to display it. So let's put in the Excel object, and I just want to make sure we have enough room on the page to get it in here. Okay, so I'm going to put it in. So we're going to go back over here to input output. We're going to click on the Excel component. We're going to put it in here. And now in the input section, we're going to write into this Excel object, and then we're going to use a subscript, and we're going to say, starting at location A1, we want to write in our force data. And that'll drop right into the left column. Actually, maybe we want to start at A2, so that we can reserve that header for our descriptors. Okay, so there's that. And so now let's do another one. Let's say into this Excel object, B2, we're going to write in our distance data. And then into this Excel object, starting at C2, okay, so we're giving it the starting point. Starting at C2, we want to write in our torque data. So there's that. Okay, so now we can double click on this object and we can get into this data set in Excel. So I'm going to double click on this. It opens in Excel. Okay, I'm going to label the columns force, distance, and torque. And then we can apply any kind of formatting that we want to apply to this data set because we have the full functionality of Excel available here. And we'll just maybe highlight those headers, and maybe we should center them too. So there's that. And now let's apply some conditional checking on the output torque. Okay, so maybe we want to highlight anything over 1,000 as a pass, and then anything less than 1,000 as some kind of red flag. So that particular calculation didn't meet its threshold. So we're going to go over to the conditional formatting, and anything that's greater than 1,000, we'll go ahead and say that's going to look green. And then anything that is less than that is going to be red. Now we can close this. And we're going to see that data set represented, that Excel spreadsheet, we're going to see back in Mathcad. Okay, so there's that. And so now we can collapse this. We can shrink this a little bit so that we can just display this the way that we want to. We can collapse the outputs. And now we have this really nice data table here that lists our inputs, our outputs. We have the conditional formatting. It's all set to go. And then if we change any of our inputs, then this will update automatically. We don't actually have to activate Excel and run Excel live. It'll just run as a background process, and this table will update. So in this case, we only had inputs, but we could have outputs from Excel too. The same way that we defined inputs, we would pull out the data that we want to extract from Excel in the output section. So that's the Excel component.